It does look like we have an ad by Rick. Yeah, or Pepper.
Yes.
Okay.
Both, we both.
You're submitting that on behalf of Pepper Tepperman?
Yes.
Okay. And we do have an executive session just to discuss a couple of no trespass orders by the attorney. Okay. So we're calling the meeting to order. We need to approve the minutes from June 3rd.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve.
I'll second that. Here's the, I think the sign. Just a sign.
You have a signed copy? All right.
Are there anything that you all want to raise here? We're putting yours, this is on the agenda as number 7, but I don't know if anybody has comments. That was submitted by Pepper Tepperman and Rick, but we're gonna get to that as number 7 on the agenda. Is there anything anybody want to bring forward?
Just give a quick update on the Act 82 that the
Please.
governor enacted. So basically, it's being run by the Vermont Department of Taxes. The Commissioner of Taxes will decide if a town qualifies, and then he would notify the Agency of Education of which towns would qualify, and then we would get a credit, as we said. However, when we did our hearings, I read everything, and I'll send an email out, I guess, to the whole board. However, we did not abate the school property tax.
So there's nothing to be done at this point?
In my opinion, because you can't get money back that you didn't give out.
Correct.
The town did not borrow money, and we're not in dire straits.
Okay.
And then there is a complicated formula that they use to even figure out, it's not saying that you're gonna get all of your money back.
Okay.
Is what I said. That's what if you all wanna read it, I read it how many million times. And I called, the League of Cities and Towns. They referred me to the Vermont Department of Taxes. They gave me one person who didn't know, none of them really knew what I was talking about. They didn't know what the act was all about, and I kind of had to explain it. And then they sent me to somebody else. So after 3 or 4, and then reading all this, that's
Okay.
my opinion on
Okay.
it. But I will send.
So unless I think it's on the taxpayers that requested abatement before to come back to us, is that accurate?
No, they cannot.
Okay.
They cannot. Only the town can ask for
Okay.
their money back.
Okay.
The taxpayers,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
on one of the pages here somewhere, because that's all the.
All right.
Only we can do it. So, and
Thank
it
you.
has to also be done, of course, select board approval with it. But so I'll just send the email out, and that's basically.
Thank you, Karen, for going through that.
You're welcome.
So Gannon, that's you.
Yeah.
All right.
Scott Ernie, Land Acquisition Coordinator with the Vermont Department of Forest Parks and Recreation. Do you two have materials I sent out, like the map and everything up there, or I have some copies here if you need them?
Okay. Oh, no, we actually we have copies.
Okay, great.
And I'm sorry I said Gannon, not Gunner.
No, it's a common mistake, especially with these. But yeah, with the Vermont Department of Forest Parks and Recreation, coming here tonight to discuss a land conservation project that we're working on here in Plymouth, just up the road. So the property in question is 91 acres right on Route 100 that we're looking at purchasing as an addition to the west block of Coolidge State Forest. The parcel, we're calling it the Riding Parcel. It's currently owned by the Conservation Fund, who bought it from the estate of Thomas Ryan last year. And the Conservation Fund is a partner we work with often, and they've been holding the land. Sorry, can I hear you? They've been holding the land while SDR works on our due diligence, and until we're ready to accept the land and have it added to the state forest. So The parcel, the state's interested in the parcel for a handful of reasons. There's a lot of good ecological values with it. From a water quality perspective, it protects a lot of shore frontage along Madden Brook, I believe 1,600 feet or so. Madden Brook being an important cold water tributary to Reservoir Brook and the Ottaquechee River, important cold water habitat for wild trout and other species. It also will obviously protect just 90 acres of nice valuable forest land, and add it to the state forest, which will help provide all the ecosystem services that forest land provides, and will help kind of work towards connecting the west and east block of the state forest across Route 100. It'll add some management and recreational access to the state forest, and a portion of the state forest where there isn't much access. So management access for the state to come in and do forest management, or anything we might need to get onto the state forest for. We always like having a little bit more access, and also recreational access for the public to get out there and enjoy it. As with all state lands, as soon as FPR acquires the land, it'll be open totally to the public for all sorts of dispersed recreation, like hiking, hunting, fishing, bird watching, that sort of stuff. And further down the road, the Department of Fish and Wildlife is planning to pitch in to help build a new parking area on the property to help enhance the recreational benefits. Yeah, that's most of the nuts and bolts of the project. Do you have any questions about the project or state land acquisitions in general?
Oh, that was my first question, was about parking. That's great.
In terms of current access on the parcel, there's no formal parking areas or anything along Route 100. I will say, I forgot to mention, it has about 2,000 feet of frontage on Route 100, so it'll protect the scenic views along the scenic byway. But there is an entrance there's a series of logging roads out there, and there's access that could potentially be expanded there.
So when you're heading down 100 towards Bridgewater, where is it located?
It's right up this way near the Killington border.
Oh, that way?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right across from Markowski's almost. I'd say the
Alright.
bulk of it is the
Okay.
gravel pit
Yeah.
area.
Good.
It doesn't back up to Killington, then, does it?
To the resort, or the town?
The town?
I think it's on, I don't think it's quite does.
Yeah. That's the other road that goes up through Shrewsbury.
CCC
Road, that's CCC Road.
Yeah, it's close, but I don't think it quite backs up.
So this is part of the bear quarter, yeah? The wildlife
Yeah.
quarter, yeah?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's what I was thinking in my head.
And I think the conservation fund in the state at one time did the, it was called Parker's Gore, conserving that land. Is that abuts that, I would guess?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It doesn't ring a bell. I've only been in the state for almost, well over 6 months, so older projects I'm not super familiar with. But, yeah. And as a standard part of our land acquisition process, we come to every town before we acquire any interest in land to discuss the project and ask for their support. So that's the reason I'm here today.
So I'd make a motion to support this.
A second.
There's a letter included in the packet. Well, great, that's easy.
Thanks for having it ready, Angela.
Does it need?
No, wouldn't hurt.
Okay, I got it.
So we run by the forest part.
The Department of Forest Parks and Recreation.
That's what I do a lot of those.
Yeah.
And Angela, you probably want to like take a copy of that, do you, and then forward it, the original, or do you need the original or copies?
No, it can be a scan, whatever.
Okay.
It's easiest for you.
All right, it'll be in our minutes as well.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
So we have a special event, North Chair Brewing LLC, they're requesting a permit liquor license.
That was the one, same gentleman who submitted for Whetstone last month.
Okay.
But this, I don't know if you shipped the names, or this was the new company name, so he did the permit under what, they're
Okay.
gonna be under the state park. So I just printed that off, so it's the same guy, same situation, but,
Okay.
so we do it formally.
All right.
Was this the event at the park
Yeah.
we talked about?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Just when we approved it under Whetstone, so.
I make a motion to approve that, I think.
Yeah, I'd second that. Sure.
Okay, and then, this is called a stipulation to dismiss with prejudice. I'm just gonna read this. Superior Court, Windsor Unit, State of Vermont, Civil Division, docket number 23-CB-01625. This is Rick Martin, plaintiff, versus Steve Verdonis, defendant. The parties have a signed settlement agreement attached as Exhibit 1. The mutual general release is attached as Exhibit 2. Hereby stipulate and agree under VRCP 41A that any and all claims by and between the parties shall be dismissed with prejudice, each party to bear their own costs, attorney's fees, and no party admitting to liability or wrongdoing.
So this kind of plays in, Jay, into what we're going to talk about. If you look on the second page, I circled the last sentence of paragraph 1.
Oh, that?
Okay,
Yeah,
yep.
I saw that.
This comes into play to what happened during the vote on Bethany Burgess.
Got it. And when you raised that, Steve was here, I believe, and if anybody objected to you speaking, that's when the action occurred. Is that correct?
Correct, which
Okay.
violates that agreement.
Okay. So,
Yeah, so what, do you want me to build on that?
please.
So, obviously, this kind of comes into the whole tax thing, which is still not sitting well with a lot of people. Unfortunately, the meeting was held, and I want to talk about how do we change the voting rules to do an Australian ballot instead of setting a 7 o'clock time, because there were well over 60, 70 people that couldn't come at that time to vote against it, because we had over like 150 signatures on those petitions. So a lot of them couldn't come. Work to re-vote on Bethany Burgess tax.
You can't have that many.
Well, we had at least 3% or something, but we only submitted the minimum amount we needed.
Okay, because you can only submit if it's over a certain percentage.
That's what we did, but there was other sheets we had.
So you had 150 people, but you never submitted all the,
No, we did what we,
you did what you required, because if you did above, you wouldn't have been able to have it.
yeah, no, I worked with the town
Okay.
clerk's office to do that, which was fine. We followed all the rules. You know, one of the things, and I'm not sure, this is kind of a sidestep subject, how do we change the voting rules to make sure that any articles other than elected offices,
And probably the budget, or maybe not.
how do we change it to say you do an Australian ballot like we do on voting day? The night before, we have the meeting to discuss these, but you don't vote on it. Because it's very difficult for a lot of people to get out at that hour. Work, children, a lot of elderly people can't drive at that hour. It's just difficult.
You have to get a petition up by the people, submit it, and we have to vote on it. And like I said
It's
before,
not a petition.
these are the laws, we don't
That's fine.
make these laws.
That's why I
If you give,
asked
and
you.
like I've stated before, you give up, when you go to Australian ballot, you give up the right to change anything.
Correct.
amendments, yeah.
No amendments to anything. We do not, we used failed, I've done it before when my kids were in school, I amended the school budget. We don't have that right anymore.
Okay,
You
so
give up your right, so it makes, you can get a petition up and bring it, and
that's fine.
that's how you have to do it.
Everybody's fine with it there. So anyways, that's one thing. Also, this kind of plays into this now, and then we'll get into the other thing. Having non-residents not vote on a tax issue, I've talked to a few attorneys about it. It violates their constitutional rights. We're paying taxes. So the argument can be made, if you can't allow these people to speak their mind, nicely, that, hey, we don't appreciate, we don't want to do this is why, you basically tell them it's taxation without representation, because they can't say anything, which not only violates their free speech right.
And, well, this is a statute,
I know,
right? And generally, we've said people, Plymouth has been pretty generous, so like, hey, if you want to speak, we'll hear you. There was an incident with someone that you had been in conflict with that kind of, it's just set up in that way, right? And I understand it doesn't feel good.
Well, it's not, it's kind of illegal, Jay. That's where I'm coming from, because so this might give me an open door to say, hey, you don't let me say anything, I don't have to pay my taxes. That's a road that can go down, just tell you, it's possible, okay? Second, at the federal level, this is bigger. It's not, we're going above state now, okay? I spoke to the Attorney General's office, and they said, you can't do that. If I know I can't vote on, right now, in the process of changing things, on elected officials. That's fine, because I vote in Boston. Can't do dual.
Right.
I'm fine with that. But everywhere else in the country, people are allowed to talk, even if they own second homes, this and this, without taxes, because this amounts to a lot. So you're basically cutting off their feet as voicing their concern.
So this is over us as well, if you understand, right? This is not a rule that we made up, this is state statute.
There is, but we can, that's something else, we probably have to enter a petition somewhere.
I don't know anything about that, I just know there's a lot of state statutes that we have to, abide by. We don't make the rules, we're part of the election committee, and I'm very adamant. Things have been said before about voter registration not being up to snuff for people. There's people like, look, and everyone knows me in elections. I am making sure it's a beef with me. I want to make sure our elections are fair, fine, and we follow the law. And I read.
Correct.
I read, and any of these votes that we have, we're part of the board. We have to abide by these.
Correct.
I research, if something comes up, I go home and I look at it, so I'm prepared at meetings.
So the state statute, I have not read that statute, but the state statute specifically say that if one person objects, a non-voter.
Why don't we just say that Rick and I and Angela will investigate that with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, who have legal counsel that doesn't cost us really anything, and they are experts in these policies.
Because that falls under this.
I think it's fair that taxpayers should not be able to speak because one person has a beef with another person.
So let us ask.
I can see them,
Let's ask them a question.
I can see them not voting if they're not a registered voter in the town.
Right, yeah.
But
That's
I think
perfect.
people should be able to at least speak their mind.
Oh, I agree with
They
you.
pay a lot of
And I do
taxes.
too. We've never had that
Yeah.
issue before,
I know.
where no one was allowed to speak. I've been here,
I know.
you've been here a long
Yeah.
time too, 40-some years I've lived here, and I've never seen that happen.
Well,
And if
the
we
court
had our way,
document
we
there,
would have listened,
it shows that.
Right,
And
but I'm just saying that,
it's
that
gonna
has
happen
something to do
again,
with
it's
us,
gonna happen
right.
again. Not specifically with the people we're talking about, but it could happen again in the future where you just gotta allow people to speak.
Because
Short
even
and
our
sweet.
representative has to ask permission to speak.
But that's okay,
Yeah.
but you can't have it maybe made personal, vengeful, or vindictive, which it is.
Right.
Well, I can't disagree with
I
you
know.
there, but we have somebody, and that is their right, unfortunately, and it supersedes your right.
But that's where we need to get rid of that, so people can, most of the time, people may not speak.
I think we personally need to look into Robert's rules and see.
That's the key.
Robert's rules, we need
Yes.
to honestly re-look into that.
And Tom Harris studies those before every,
Well, there's sometimes things that I look, because I had to figure out that one about how many people.
so
I've been trying, I thought I had looked at home, but I have to get one. because
So
that's not-
we want this revisited and researched.
Yeah,
And
let's
then-
look into it, because let's go beyond the unfair thing.
Okay.
It's kind of illegal, it really You're violating somebody's constitutional right to free speech.
So it may end up being Rick Martin against the state of Vermont in the end, you know.
And I'm fine with doing that.
Yeah.
I don't care.
They're gonna be town of
You
Plymouth slash.
know me, I'm good for
Yeah.
a fight.
Yeah, yeah,
This, and I've already talked to the Attorney General's office.
yeah.
And they said, well, if you do this, you're probably gonna win. Because they told me that.
They may change the law.
Well, they said if they don't want to be embarrassed because federal would step in and shut them down completely on this. This is a constitutional issue, not a state issue. It's a First Amendment right to speak anywhere. You can't shut somebody down. It's written in that document day. And that's okay. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I would hate, future people to have this go through too. Because it's just,
So I'm gonna make a call to Tom Harris, just to consult with him in the book of Robert's rules, see what just to make sure what he's referring to. We will send that to the league with a little bit of a synopsis here about what's been discussed. And we will have, I'd say we probably have an answer by the next select board meeting.
Oh, that's fine.
And that will give you direction,
yeah.
or us direction.
So this kind of morphs into the tax issue with Bethany Burgess. So I did talk to someone she's our district representative, district advisor at the Property Valuation Review Division. And I'll forward you guys this email. She suggested that the town read these statutes again. When Pepper talked to us, got into things, and we checked in, and first thing she asked us to do was look around the state to see what other religious camps are exempt. There were several that aren't. Okay, and one of them was the one in Bethel said,
Yeah.
we're not going to bother this and fight it because we're going to lose and we don't have the money to fight it. So that was the town of Bethel. So what this is amounting to is, again, it might come down to litigation, whether it's against Bethany Burgess or something, which is okay. The fact that, again, you can't force somebody to pay somebody else's taxes. You just can't. Even if they vote on it, it's illegal. This is bizarre, but where the money's gonna come from, I'm not gonna get into, but you gotta give people the option that'll make the donations and stuff, but saying to everybody, well, I'm an atheist, by the way. So this goes against my religious rights, right there, right up the top.
Mm-hmm.
We used to donate to Bethany Burgess, and we're not doing it anymore. We cut them off completely, because this is just not. I like Bethany Burgess. As you all know, I own the 14 acres across them and 180 behind them. I'm their biggest abutter. But this has put a very bad taste in my mouth. You're telling me that I have to, especially on the store, when that money can go to my employees in forms of raises, bonuses and stuff, and now I can't. And they're all up in arms about this too, by the way. So here I am trying to establish a very good business, and this is what I wanted to say at the town meeting, is people don't understand this. It's nothing against them. What they do is great, I think, but if you're gonna do it for one, you should do it for Fund the Wilderness, you should do it for other things, because you're setting a dangerous precedent. The 90% of my profits go to my animal rescue group. Why aren't I exempt? Chloe's Market. So this is following like a logical pattern now, that we have to be careful towing this, and I'll send you the statutes, and she's asked us to look at them and see why did they get exempt in the first place. Because after reading them, and Pepper can go into this a little bit, they're really not exempt. They make a profit, a big profit. They're buying land all over the place. When, like that $70,000 purchase they made, they should have paid their taxes with it. But they didn't. And now they're in negotiations to buy more land.
So here's an interesting thing I was reading not too long ago. Harvard University, right? $37 billion endowment, doesn't pay property taxes.
I know, which is,
Because it's a school.
it's a school.
So
Bethany Burgess is just a camp.
So
It's not owned by
the distinction,
a church.
is it is a 501c3, which is a nonprofit organization within
Okay.
charitable. That's, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm just saying that is how you qualify under the law.
No, it's not how you qualify. It's how you qualify to be considered There are 3 other religious type camps in this state, all right? Bethel has 1, Cabot has 1, and Irisburg. Irisburg, they are exempt because the church owns the camp.
Okay.
In Bethel, they do not, no church owns the camp. They are not exempt. The listers wouldn't, the town wouldn't even consider exempting them. In Cabot, they are not exempt for the same exact reason. They're both nonprofit, they're all nonprofits,
Yep,
but
different
the town would
different
not
subheadings,
even
yeah.
consider it. And I'm gonna ask you, I wanna see the paperwork that Bethany Birch has submitted. You know, they've made decent profits over these years. And as I said at the meeting, and I said in my letter, I think it is not good neighbors to put burden on a lot of people in our town. You know, we have a lot of young people and we have a lot of older people who live on fixed incomes and are paying, they're struggling to pay their own taxes. Bethany Birch's, we're paying, they're in current use, so the townspeople are already picking up the balance of their property tax. And now we're picking up their education tax. And I don't think it's fair at all.
So it's, yeah, let's look at the legal argument. So
Yeah,
that's what, now this is the path we want to do, is follow this logic. How did they get exempt? Are they still now? Because after I read the statutes, they don't qualify. They're not associated with the church anymore.
Okay.
It was all the deeds showed that they have been given to BBC, not the Mennonite church or whatever
Right.
Bethany Purchase was part of.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's a Mennonite.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
no.
But it's not anymore. So, these are things that, you know, I wanted to bring up for discussion during the town thing so people could hear this, because I don't think a lot of people understand the logistics of this. Now, if they were owned by a church, and they'd be, well, guess what? I have nothing to do with it. No, but this is a little bit different. So, and it's just, was follow logic, make sure the town's protected, that we're doing what we did. There was one other question I had.
Can you help us with this process, Angela, in getting the documents? Do you have time to do some research too? Okay.
It was a while ago, Angela. And how many,
Well, they would have just had to submit more
Yeah.
paperwork. They
Yeah.
would have had to submit it
Gotta follow
when
the
they
statute.
initially asked.
Sounds like a
for the
research
exemption.
project.
And I would like that
They did
paperwork.
it right.
And I would also like the paperwork that they just submitted for this vote to be exempt.
what is the percentage of taxpayers who are non-residents in this town? Is it like 70 some odd %?
Yes, yeah,
So,
it's probably 2/3 of the
think about this.
town.
Those people stop paying their taxes because of this, what's gonna happen?
Tax sale,
Yeah, on 70% of the property?
and people will buy them.
Yeah.
This real estate market.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It is.
And they pay a lot of money.
I know.
And, you know, some people think, oh, second home. I said, listen, they bring this very valuable asset to Plymouth. They pay their taxes on time. They take care of their property.
Some of them.
Well, I know, that's, you can't do anything about that. I'm just saying, I'm being kind. And they bring a lot of industry into the town, and I'll say selfishly, to the store. They're like, yeah, this is great, we don't want to lose them. You know,
Somebody live in the house.
I know.
You know, somebody that live there, pay their taxes, they live there full-time, they're gonna be in the store more often probably than, I mean, I have nothing against second homeowners, they're
Oh, I know.
part of our community, but
Right.
I just think people, that,
You know,
these town.
we don't wanna see them abused.
No, let them speak. So I'm back to the beginning. Let them speak, let them have a
I'm
voice.
hogging the conversation.
No, go for it, I'm just trying to absorb it all.
It's a lot, like,
I want to understand why they can be exempt for 5 years. Why,
yes, sure.
again, versus the other charity organizations that don't ask us for almost $20,000 a year to be exempt from on the education tax side. Why do the other charities only have to do this annually, but yet they can do that for 5 years? Well, tell me what the difference is.
That's the appropriation. Yeah, that's the appropriation.
My
It's
thought is that
usually
it's just-
5 years,
It's as simple as that's what they asked for, and that's what they put on their petition. And that's what was voted on.
It's always passed, so I don't.
Have you guys called like Ludlow? Because like they do the same thing there. It's-
I think it's yearly.
No, it's 5 years.
Is it 5 over there?
Yes, because I live in Ludlow, and you look at the annual report, it's the same way.
For the charities?
For like Gil Oddfellows Home, a
Oh,
bunch
okay.
of organizations there, so it's the
Yeah,
same
because
thing.
we've always done it yearly.
They even pay money to the expeditionary school.
Correct. But my point is Plymouth isn't doing something that other towns are not doing.
Right.
We're not making this up here. It's-
Well, all of, like the visiting nurses and those have always been done annually, not
Correct, and
5 years.
Correct, again,
Yeah, Yeah,
appropriations,
we've
which every
always,
town does.
yeah, so,
Because part of too, what I'm looking at is, I'm probably going to establish a yearly scholarship for a Plymouth student to go to college. But this is going to put a cog in it, because that profit would have gone to.
It's great, we want to get my PhD.
Huh?
We want to get my
Well,
PhD.
I mean, I would love to do something that I don't want to close. Here's a $2,500 scholarship to a person who graduates high school, gets a certain GPA, is accepted into a college, and attends for at least a year. I think that's awesome. But this type of stuff,
There's a church still doing that?
you know. And that falls under charitable donations too. So, and I'm just thinking forward, you know, as we go through all this and try to attract more businesses to Plymouth. You know, how do we do that? By making sure that these people have a voice and where their tax dollars are going to go. And that's the big kahuna right now.
So I just looked it up quickly, and it's form PBR-317, Vermont Property Tax, Public, Pious, and Charitable Exemption.
mhm,
So that, you probably read that?
mhm.
Okay. So I think that's probably how the initial determination was made.
Statute.
But it's on the ballot.
What about PBR 317?
That's the one.
That's the one, okay, I have that here.
That would have been the starting point.
And the problem is those statutes are so gray, it's incredible. There's so much wiggle room in them. And that's fine, I worked in, the biotech pharmaceutical industry for 40 years. The regulations from the FDA are the same way. Rick, you could come in and inspect me and have one interpretation, I'd be sitting on the other side of the desk and have a different one. But that's where you gotta compromise. It's like, okay, what is the intent of it? Do you meet the intent of it, and what's going to be the pro or the con of implementing that? And those are the discussions I think we all should have, logically, and what is the pro and what is the con.
You know, that does not say that they're exempt, it just says that they may be exempt under the statute 32 VSA 38024.
And those are the words I always zero on. Is it say, you shall be exempt, which means you don't have a choice. May be exempt, well, guess what? You're not exempt if they decide you're not to. Those are the little words that, when I see an FDA regulation that says will or shall, well, I have to follow it. I don't have a choice, which is fine. It's there for a reason. But when I see may or could, well, guess what?
Well, if you're reading that, somebody could say, well, I have a daycare, and I run my daycare with following my religious beliefs, standards, whatever you want to call them. So does that make them in the same category? I don't think so.
Well, you did see like the three conditions that must exist, right? That's the initial. You want me to read those? Is that helpful?
Sure.
Well, I know that.
Okay. One, the following conditions must exist for the public, pious, or charitable use exemption under 32 VSA 304, 302, 3802 to comply. The property must be dedicated unconditionally to public use.
Mhm.
The primary use must directly benefit an indefinite class of persons who are part of the public and must also confer a benefit on society as a result of the benefit conferred on the persons directly served. And the property must be owned and operated on a not-for-profit basis.
So number 2 is the one you would focus on.
So at 3802, 4 reads, real and personal estate granted, sequestered, or used for public, pious, or charitable uses. Real property owned by churches or church societies or conferences and used as parsonages, and personal property therein used by ministers engaged in full-time work in the care of the church of their fellowship within the state. Real and personal estate set apart for library uses and used by the public in private circulating libraries, and then it goes into schools and all. That's what the statute says. So I don't see where the camp, it's not owned by a church. It's its own incorporated entity.
This is the fun part about
So you want to challenge their tax exempt status? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, I'm questioning it, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like
That's
to
what I
see.
understand, yeah.
Yeah, I'm questioning it, why they're exempt.
Who,
Why they even were eligible. to
How did they get on the
vote.
ballot, basically?
In Bethel, they wouldn't even put it on the ballot. They absolutely said, no, this is just a camp. We're not putting it on the ballot. And they're a religious,
okay, suppose they're not a tax exempt entity. I mean, other towns or municipalities can give tax breaks to businesses, corporations to come to town and start a business. That's not a tax exempt, that's a for-profit company. But yet a board or municipality can still grant tax exempt status or tax breaks to entice them to come to a community, right?
right.
So is that illegal?
It falls under a different statute and it also doesn't increase people's property taxes. Or you're not.
Why not? Why doesn't it increase people's property
It's like, all
tax?
I can speak to that, Rick, is like in Massachusetts, to attract,
Yeah,
there was this lot of attracting, again, my experience, biotech, pharmaceutical. They poured a lot of money, but the tax took it out of some rainy day fund or something. It didn't increase people, they didn't tack it on to the residents' property taxes, because I know the legal argument for that, but it was more, yeah, we're gonna promise you that, but the state's taking care of it, it's not gonna be the residents who suffer because of their tax. Because if they had done that, everybody's tax bills would have been up around $100,000 a year,
I mean,
because they would give.
okay, maybe that's a bad example, then that's fine.
No, it's a good example,
what
but I don't think
business
it
would
falls
the
under
town
that.
of, would come to the town of Plymouth that would be that the town would give them a tax exemption or less? No, I mean, it would have to be, that's, I understand where you're coming from, Rick.
Right.
And I'm all for government giving big businesses, you know, to get them into areas. Nobody's gonna come to Plymouth for something like that. I mean, I don't think,
Okay,
you know,
No,
but
you
I
don't have the
understand where
money.
you're coming from.
So that would have to come, like, it was almost the city of
Yeah.
Boston, they took the money and gave it, you know, gave them the ability, the tax breaks and that stuff to do that. So it came out of something else. It didn't come
And your
out
tax dollars are at work,
of, yeah.
just like,
But what they
just
do,
like with this whole thing with the Duane account, I'm looking at reading it, basically your tax money just coming
Yeah.
out somewhere else.
okay, so let's back up. So who granted them tax exempt status? Is it a state?
The listers said they were
No.
qualified,
Listers.
and then the people voted
Oh, okay.
here. Oh, did you say tax exempt status?
Yeah.
I mean, originally?
Yeah.
You have to apply for an exemption with the Secretary of State.
Right.
In
So,
Okay.
so that's nothing we did.
Right.
That's a state issue. They applied for that tax
Then
exempt
why do we
status
have
to
to
the
vote
state.
on it?
That is the statute in Vermont. Massachusetts is automatic. If a community feels in Vermont that their nonprofit is worthy of that, the town votes on it and they get it.
Where does it say in the statute that if you're a tax exempt from what? Sales tax,
So
income tax,
here's
but
something
not property
from an
taxes.
attorney. The statutory purpose of the exemption for public, pious, and charitable property in section 3832 and 3840 and subdivision 38024 of this title is to allow these organizations to dedicate more of their financial resources to furthering their public service missions.
Well, that's not what it says in 38024.
This is an attorney's opinion.
Well, it's not what it reads in
It
328.
needs to be that. Those are the
38024.
attorney, they need to be that, so.
So with the town can spend money on an attorney, we can get an opinion.
You know, we can do a lot of side research too, I mean, it's like, you know, it's just gonna, let's get to the bottom of this and really tear this apart so we understand.
Well, let's just find out if it's, right, if we can get the answer, if it's legal, which I do think it is. I mean, if we find out everything has gone the way it should, we may not like the answer, but we may have to live with it. Otherwise, we will spend town money with an attorney just to pick it apart for information, right? That's not.
Right.
And they probably need to, and I'll forward you the email I got from Deanna and just let you see what she said about the whole thing. But she did say there was a recent judgment, and it was Our Lady of Ephesians, or
Yeah.
is that what it was? I don't know where it is, I don't know, I was like, and they had applied for some tax exemption on the playground, and they denied it. Because they were trying to do was saying that was part of this land, and they said, no, it isn't. And you have to read the brief, it's fascinating, but they said, no, can't do it. Now, this might kind of apply to the fact that a lot of that, how many acres of land does Bethany Burgess have in current use, you know? That's something we need to find out, because I know there's a whole bunch of camp shelters out on the property, which would violate that. You can't use it for it. Once it's in current use, you can't do anything with it.
Actually, I do know that from experience, that the county forester ruled that 3-sided structures used solely for recreational purposes are compatible with forestry.
So we need to find out how many.
Yeah.
Because they only have, what,
Lean-to.
90,
Yes.
90
Yeah,
acres?
they're three, they don't have, they're three-sided.
Yeah, I mean,
I looked at it,
you know,
last I was up there.
it is a
They have
rustic
to go back out in the woods.
recreational structure, and
The ones in
we had to
the
go
trees.
through this with the
They have
county
them up in the
forester.
trees, they've been there forever. My kids, when my kids are 40, they've been there, going there for, playing with them there.
We just have to see that. And there was actually some creeping in onto my 180 acres, which I took care of already, so. But
I would just say, this is an interesting conversation.
Yes.
And I'd like to get to the bottom of it, I truly would, because, you know, I don't like paying other people's taxes either. But we gotta follow the statute. And we
Absolutely.
gotta follow the law. So it sounds like we gotta do some more research and
Yes.
come up with some
Let's tease it
answers.
apart.
No, it's good questions. It's all good questions.
I'm all about digging into the little details of things, because I have to, it's my job.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, I ask a lot of questions. Because I want to learn. And this would be part of the learning process, to tell you the truth, which would suit, you know, somebody comes to us on the planning and zoning committee, and something like this comes up, we can say this, well, we did this here and there. So it'd be benefit people in the future too, to know, document it, hey, we looked into it, this is what we found out, and we file it so people can refer to it as a reference document in the future, which is great.
And there's a lot to unpack here, right? And you can know the 3 or 4 principles, but it helps have the wider understanding.
Absolutely. So that, sorry I took up so much, we took up so much time. That
No,
was-
It's all good.
So let me ask one more question, please. If next year, if we want to get on the, up for vote to overturn 5-year exemption? Or are we stuck with a 5-year exemption?
You can only recall a vote, right, once, you can only revisit it once.
Yeah, you can only
do that.
recall it once and you have to wait. There's statutes on that.
45.
So we-
I don't know it off the top of my head, you've got to wait and I don't know what, but you can only do it once. And there is time limits, but I don't know what they are off the top of my head. The same thing, it's, we don't make them, we just,
Might be
So how
45
do we
days
find
from the
that out?
time.
Not to vote on it this year, I'm talking about at next town meeting.
So this, what the vote was for a 5-year exemption. So
understand.
I don't think, we found out when we called, when the
right,
petition was submitted,
Yep.
you can only revote that once.
once, right, you can only
Okay.
revote that once.
Okay,
So you'd have to wait till the 5 years.
you're right.
for the next,
Yeah,
that's what I'm assuming from thinking, yeah, because you can only revote on something once, just like we did with the Airbnb or short-term rental. We only
Yeah.
voted on that one.
okay.
We'll dig into this and find out, try to get some answers.
That is interesting.
It's democracy at work. How's that?
That's right, that's what it is.
Which is a good thing.
Thankfully we have it.
Okay, under other business, Billings Road I'm told will be opened up this week. They poured the concrete deck last week. They're putting asphalt down as we speak. I was there just before this meeting. They had the base coat down. They were working late. They were gonna put the finish coat on. We gotta put the guardrails up the rest of this week and do a little armoring, but it should be open by Friday.
Are they ahead of schedule?
Yeah,
I thought
we were shooting for July 1.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah, it went good. It went
Goodness.
good.
Goodness.
We got a new standpipe, a new hydrant for Dave and crew
That's
for the
it.
fire department,
Nice.
so everybody's happy.
Can you let me know when it is open so I can notify dispatch? and-
I will. I'm anticipating Friday, but I'll let you know, Dave.
Thank you.
I have a technical question. Fire hydrants. So you see them along some of the roads. Do those pull the water from the river or wherever?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't have a pressurized water system in town like normal fire
Yeah.
hydrants, right? So you have to pump.
So it's the pumps down somewhere in the river and it's got a filter on it.
No, the pump's on the truck.
Truck.
On the trunk, oh, so the trunk flows in front of it.
Yeah.
It connects to the hydrant?
Yes.
So where did the hydrant pipe go? Over to the river somehow? or-
Yeah, so it goes down into the ground and then either into the lake or the river.
Oh, cool.
whatever.
I always
for
wondered-
example, there's one right out here, Rick, right out the door, right? Now, that goes into a tank that's in the riverbed,
Ah,
so there's a volume of water right there all the time.
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good setup.
But we don't have $1,100,000 pumps to maintain.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I know.
yeah.
And then how often do they test those things?
We test them yearly.
Yearly?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't have anything else.
I think that's mail warrants, and we have a little executive session to discuss a couple trespass notices.
Okay.
In the past, they're in the past, but we need to revisit them to make sure we're compliant.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording
Neat
stopped.
question.
Okay, what do you got?
So I had two suits on.
Yeah.